I'm Marilyn, CEO and founder of Cosmic Centers. And for those of you joining us for the first time, Cosmic Centers is an organizational and leadership development consultancy. And for the past 6 years, the Cosmic Conference has been the space where we learn out loud and share what we discover with the world. Every year, we choose a theme that speaks to questions that leaders are wrestling with. And this year, in our conversations with leaders, one theme kept coming up, and that is the theme of systems. Many leaders told us they felt stuck in firefighting mode, solving problems that kept coming back. And we realized this isn't a failure of leadership or strategy, but the systems that we rely on. And that is why our theme this year is the system is the strategy, helping leaders shift from firefighting to future building. In our online sessions across 3 tracks, we're exploring what it means to think in systems, from the foundational tools and methods to real-world examples from leaders who build systems that scale, innovate, and sustain, all the way to the human and spiritual dimensions that bring heart back into the conversation. We kicked off the human and spiritual dimension with a heartfelt conversation with Rawan Albina last Friday. And if you missed it, we'll share the link to the recording. It is definitely worth spending an hour. And we're continuing this conversation today with José-Rodrigo, where we center the humans behind the system. Today's conversation feels very close to home because I'm personally a really big believer in the power of bringing back the human elements into organizations, of community, of connection, but also particularly the power of rituals, which has been central to my upbringing in my community and in my workplace. In fact, last year we published an HBR paper on this topic based on over 2 years of research and collaboration with Dr. Connie Hadley, where we explored how team rituals can strengthen purpose, psychological safety, and satisfaction at work. We surveyed nearly 1,000 global office workers across 60 countries with interviews and field experiments, and we were able to show that teams with strong rituals felt 23% more commitment to their purpose, 20% higher psychological safety, and more satisfied in their jobs. So imagine my delight when I saw that there was a book published that linked rituals with systems thinking. And the author of that book is with us today. I'm going to introduce you really quickly. Dr. José-Rodrigo Córdoba-Pachón is an associate professor at Royal Holloway, University of London. He's a Colombian-trained systems engineer and has spent over 20 years advancing systems thinking in sustainability, digital governance, and information systems. His books and articles establish him as a leading voice on systems thinking and systemic approaches to complex challenges. Jose, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and it's an honor to be here, also be part of the Cosmic Centers conference. In the preparation, I felt really at home, and the discussions we have had are fun and very interesting. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. That's the most wonderful thing you could say to us. There's a very big team that, I always say I'm the frontliner of our company, but actually there's a whole team that works to make these experiences hopefully enjoyable for everybody involved, including our speakers. So everybody's really, grateful that you said that to us. Thank you for that feedback. And to everyone joining us today to attend, as always, the session is designed to be a conversation. The attendees may not be physically or in the room with their cameras, but you are with us in the room. Please do add comments, add questions, and we'll try to make this as interactive and engaging as possible. So with that, Jose, we'll start with some of our first questions and themes that we'll cover today. I always like to start at the beginning, as we say, and I want to start with a bit of a backstory. Tell us a little bit more about what first got you into studying and writing about systems thinking.
Well, that's a long story, but let's cut it short. So I was doing my computer science and systems engineering degree in Universidad de los Andes in Bogotá, in Colombia. And I was halfway through my degree and something was missing. I was doing my assignments, I was attending lectures. And so at some point then I met this lecturer, Ernesto Lleras. And the first thing he said to us is, "You are a very sleepy people." I didn't understand what it meant because maybe he saw that we were just arriving with with having worked in software assignments. But what he meant was that we weren't really prepared to face reality. We were living like in a bubble. And then he introduced a number of papers and books, and that's how I got interested. No, I could see that the systems thinking was a different way of thinking about software, a different way of thinking about reality. No, at the time in our country there was a big problem with the drug cartels, and there were bombs around the city, and we tried to remain in this bubble. But what Ernesto did was really to invite us to have another set of eyes about this situation. First of all, to accept it, and then try to do something about it. So yeah, we're talking about many years ago, and after that, I never went back. You know, I kept looking at systems. Then I left Colombia to do a master's in systems. I was intending just to be in the UK for 1 year, as the safe option, right? But then one thing led to another, and I ended up doing a PhD and a postdoc. And since then, I've been trying to incorporate systems thinking ideas in my research and my teaching. So yeah, all of a sudden, when someone tells you you're asleep, or maybe you are not seeing things the way we are seeing it, or the way they are complex, uncertain, then there's a good opportunity to stop and think.
That's really beautiful. And I really resonate, in our research leading up to this conference, one of the articles that we really loved was sharing that actually people that come from countries where their systems are broken are actually better systems thinkers, precisely because we really see that many of the issues that we deal with are systemic issues. They're not left to individual desires or concerns. And so the example that you gave from Colombia is really speaks to me. I'm speaking to you today from where I was born, which is Beirut. Very much resonate with that. And I was glad to see that there was at least one positive outcome, which means that we are better systems thinkers than people that come from countries that function. So if there is a silver lining, I suppose, in all of that.
Yes, yeah, I think you're right, and the perhaps there is always this dilemma, no, the managing the new, the things that come from outside, no, the things that you are supposed to be doing as a country or as a society. We were told that we needed really to work for the country with our knowledge, but then we had this reality there, so we had to mix both. No, we have to mix the old and the new, and we have to try to make sense of it. So that was a big awakening, and I think I'm still trying to remain awake in situations now with the new realities of our world.
That's really beautiful. Actually, when you posted about this webinar, you mentioned that you were drawing inspiration from Zhuangzi. I hope I'm not butchering his name, who is a Chinese philosopher, and his teachings on resilience and sustainability. And I'd love for you to tell us a bit more about how this philosophy resonates with your work on systems.
Yeah, going back, Ernesto gave us a reading of someone called the Cook Ding, which appears in the Swansea, which Swansea could have been a person, or it's a collection of writings. And this cook is very expert in cutting meat so that he doesn't miss anything, but he doesn't make unnecessary efforts. And he speaks to the emperor at the time, and the emperor praises him. So for me, I have to say, after many years of listening to that at Ernesto's class, I now realize how important it is, no? Because we live in a world that we try to do more and do better and always strive. Whereas if we take seriously this idea of the cook, we need some time to gain some experience, but at some point we just need to let our inner intuition, if you like, or our inner knowledge emerge and flow with whatever we are doing. So I'm at the point where I'm going back to Zhuangzi and trying to say, well, maybe there is a bit more, yeah, than just simply creating things or not even appreciating what is behind us, no? So yeah, I'm not an expert in Swansea, but this is where I think my thinking needs to go in the next few years. Now, try to not design things that are too complicated or things that waste. They generate this sort of waste of time. Or, of course, we have had many methodologies and many approaches, especially in management, to look at make things more agile, to make things more lean. But this sort of thinking of Swansea ask us maybe not to overdo things, but also maybe try to find our place, no, in situations where, or maybe not do anything. Let the problems solve themselves, which is, well, it's really challenging, no, when you are trying to improve things or you are tasked with making things better, no. In my job as a lecturer, well, it's always an innovation to combine, no. But last week I told my students, well, let's go back and write in pen and paper, see what happens. No? And they were like, oh my God, is this really what we pay for? And I said, well, maybe that's a way of discovering art in management. No?
I think that's a really beautiful perspective. You're reminding me of something that our colleague Tala's mom says. She says, we are called human beings, not human doings. And somewhere along the way, especially these days, it can certainly feel like we've forgotten that quite a bit. I resonate with that a lot. I live in Dubai most of the year. That's a doing city. There is no being in Dubai at all. And I always say, I come to Beirut to be. And you can, even my friends and anybody who knows me, like, sees the shift in my persona when I'm here. Like, suddenly things slow down a bit. And, I can find meaning in things that don't have to equate with accomplishments or finishing things or getting tasks done. And I think I really resonate with that. And when we spoke about, when we first met and I was pitching to you this idea of coming to speak at the conference, and you've already kind of started to demonstrate that, what really struck me is that relationship that you have with time, like about slowing down, the pausing, but also how you bring back humanity almost into the discussion, which is really beautiful because a lot of us see systems thinking as an engineering problem. And in fact, you first studied it as an engineering problem, right, in the computer science world. But you've really traveled to the other side and have really humanized this and brought back the human to the center of it. I wonder if you could speak to us a little bit about how you think about the human at the center of systems.
Well, yes, we can be driven away by new technological developments, and now we have artificial intelligence, generative tools, and that's a real temptation to go back and say, to go away and say, well, I'm not a human anymore. Let's the technology be human. Let's try to make it more human, and we start to believe it now. But that technology, first of all, has been designed by humans now. And second of all, it's part of our societies. We have to welcome it in a big way, no? And so if you're not going to become a technologist, become a better human in welcoming and making sure that people use it in a responsible way, no? So for me, the human is part of the system. It's not going to go away. Maybe we are going to give some tasks to the technology. When I first started, when I graduated, a big situation in Colombia was the opening of the market, and there were many banks, foreign banks, coming to us. I was working in a local bank, so there was a similar fear to what we see now, that they're going to take over us, and technology is going to replace every job. And then there was an event where one of the technology consultants says, how do we make technology better? And someone came back and said, but what do you mean by technology? Is it a tool? Is it a place? Is it a kind of virtual environment? And we couldn't answer that question, because from the human perspective, the technology was not part of their environment. So the first thing was to try to welcome that technology in a positive way. Like when you welcome a guest, you don't ask the guest to go and do the cooking or take over the whole space. You negotiate things or you have certain boundaries. So I think that the boundaries are important for humans and for technology. But we still have a very important role to play when it comes to use technology, when it comes to design new technology, and when it comes to pick up the pieces. Some of these technologies have proven to be good in one way, but and also they have some effects that we need to address.
I really love that. Thank you for sharing it. I've never thought of technology as the guest to be welcomed. I think that's a really just a beautiful way of shifting mindset around how we approach these things. And yes, definitely, AI is definitely putting into question what does it mean to be human. But I think it's really interesting that you also bring up this topic of boundaries, because that's a great transition, in fact, to the discussion of rituals, because that's the first thing that brought us together. Is that as I was trying to find books on the topics of systems thinking and trying to find something that was beyond, just the core methodology that can sometimes be alienating, I found your book. And you speak of rituals actually almost as mediation spaces or interfaces. So in some ways, a form of a boundary that we will explore together. But first, tell us again, what got you to want to explore the intersection of rituals and systems thinking?
Books. Well, I was fast tracking into my history. I did my PhD in systems thinking applied to information systems, but then at some point I moved into the area of creativity, because I thought that when you are going to design systems, you need participation from people, and the methodologies that we have for systems thinking, they go as far as helping discuss and debate things, but probably at the granular level of asking people for ideas, very specific ideas, or improvisation. Then I found that I needed to research more on that. So this is how I came to explore ritual, something that you imagine or you reenact as if, one of the takes on the book, but also something that gives you the chance of be part of a community. So you are reenacting, let's say, scenarios or practices without having to consider that these are going to be the norm or they are going to be the future. And we change when we perform rituals. I'm sure that if you have a ritual of waking up in the morning and having your cup of coffee, first of all, I'm sure today's cup of coffee is going to be different from tomorrow's. You change a little bit, right? You may change the sequence. Maybe the cup of coffee comes after the shower or before the shower, let's say. The same with religious rituals. You try to follow some kind of script or guidance, but you always end up doing something different. And rituals have also changed. So that gave me as you said, there's a space for imagining new things that I found in ritual. And the other nice thing about rituals is that you can become someone else. If you take, for instance, a theater or you take a performance as a ritual, you are going to be the character or you're going to play that role for a little while, and then you become whoever you are used to use. And so it might be very important when you're working with people and there are conflicts that you create some rituals, these sort of spaces of not neutral conversations, but different conversations where people can start appreciating each other's roles, and they can start maybe thinking, maybe, I play that role from someone else, and I can understand a little bit more what happens in practice. So next time I'm going to interact or I'm going to create a plan, I know what to think of, And of course, that's going to change. You had this flow of events in organizations that make you reenact, but also adapt to what's coming now. So I enjoy writing about ritual. I found that I'm not an expert or anything. Of course, there are lots of studies. I'm very glad that you have researched this in organizations. No, this is a very interesting domain. No, but yeah, maybe that speaks about human nature. No, about human beings. We like to reenact things. We like to even create myths and tell stories. And we know that we need that not to check the clarity or the truth of the story, but just to be together and think of how we can be in the world as it is now.
Yeah, in what you're saying, where I'm hearing, because obviously rituals is a topic of interest for me, always has been. I'm hearing some of the benefits of rituals. I'm gonna paraphrase what I heard and maybe ask you to expand on it. I'm hearing that they allow us to find community, and to be to find support in one another. I'm also hearing that they allow us to rethink maybe our mental models of the world. It sounded
Yeah.
like you were talking about us reframing or rethinking or reestablishing not the ultimate truth, but our view of the world through rituals. You also mentioned that this work started when you were coming from creativity, and how do you create spaces where people can create or allow for emergence to occur. What are some of the other benefits maybe of rituals that you've seen or felt?
I finished my book saying that what I learned is that really we are not to take life very seriously, which is paradoxically a very serious way of living, right? And for me, when I try to reflect on my own rituals, also in the book, I realized that maybe I could have been a little bit more relaxed about things. I could have let things flow, and maybe this is where Swansea comes in, no? Doing or not doing properly, no? So the benefit is that there's nothing fixed. There's nothing fixed. And even if you have something very tedious to do in an organization, if you have to go through the planning rounds every year, or you have to do the exercise of cutting costs, or even introducing technology, which is going to be painful, if we apply that logic or attitude of it's not that serious, it means that we will get over it. We will get over it. And we play certain roles. We perform what we have to perform at the moment, but we don't really stay in the same place. No, we don't stay in the same place. And we let our minds maybe think of other ideas. So maybe that's another benefit. No, I think going now to a little bit of the risks of ritual is for me is to take it too seriously. You know, when you have a ritual and you couldn't have your cup of coffee, oh my God, and then your day is going to be ruined. No, probably. Well, you're going to have it later. No, I'm not the best person to talk because I'm very, I'm like an engineer in that respect. But yes, if you miss the train, well, there might be another train, no? Or if the company is suffering, we have to trust that things will get better, and we are doing our best. You know, sometimes we just punish those who haven't been involved, and so yeah. For me, the ritual is an eye opener to keep the mind occupied, or refresh the mind, and thinking that things are not as serious as they appear to be.
That's lovely. Do you have any favorite ritual?
Wow. Yeah, I love taking notes. I'm still a pen and paper guy, so here is my folder. I love taking notes, highlighting things. Experts in learning and neuroscience will say that, oh, you should you should not highlight too much content because your brain is working different. For me, it's the feel of the paper, making the notes. I sent one of these a photo of one of my notes to my school friend, who always said, your writing is so bad, and I was punishing, but I keep doing it, and it was also a way for me to learn something. So I spend time with something, I do my notes, and then I feel that I have understood something, and if not, okay, the evidence is there, so I don't worry too much. You know, for me, it's having done that, which gives me a sense of, yeah, it gives me a sense of community. I'm part of a community that does research, or part of an audience that read this article or this book, and so I did my bit. That's my contribution, right? That's my ritual. Yeah.
There's
So,
so much peace in that process, I guess. And, journaling and writing is actually a recommended, ritual by a lot of practices in leadership development, in spirituality, in a lot of different spaces. And it relates to a question here from an audience member around the role that reflection plays. So what role does reflection play in helping leaders see their systems more clearly? I think is an interesting one to address.
oh, wow, the reflection is the soothing mechanism. After all this turmoil and as you just said, living in Dubai, after all that, if you spend some time reflecting what happened at the end of the day, for example, or you had to make a difficult decision, if you spend that's also a way of saying, okay, there are other things happening, no? And you can go back and justify your decision, or say, I'm gonna do it better next time. So reflection is part of things, no? You do reflection, but also you can see other people doing rituals. You want a football match, and you see the players coming in and going out, and there's a whole ceremony there. That also tells you that, yeah, there is another world that you can appreciate, no? And maybe you can put yourself in the shoes of these people temporarily. So reflection for me is important. In the book, I also say that sadly, reflection is very much linked to action, no? So you reflect to do things better, but if you take the eyes of ritual, you reflect just for the sake of it. Just for the sake of it, and see what happens. Maybe the other opportunities arise, no? If you reflect and say, well, now I'm going to do this and that, maybe your brain hasn't processed a lot of information. So, but if you reflect and leave it later, and take things later, then maybe there is other possibilities that you hadn't seen before, no? So yeah, it's a soothing mechanism, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting reflection also on the mindsets or the state that we have to be in to be a good systems thinker, which is you have to remove the mud out of the water. Otherwise, you can't see the fish tank very clearly. And so
Yeah.
that's a really interesting one around how to best position our emotional and nervous systems to be in the right place to see the system.
Yeah.
Um, Another question I have, again on rituals, we've spoken about kind of the role that they play within a system. We've spoken a bit about how they, what value they bring to us. One thing that I found in our research around rituals, especially, maybe personal rituals to some degree might, even then, I think they're not always easy to maintain or to have consistency around. But we know that the effect of rituals really shows up when we are able to, partake in them consistently.
Yeah.
If we were to look at that as a system in and of itself, what are the attributes that allow us to maintain and sustain meaningful rituals over time?
Oh, no, very good question. I think, yeah, there has to be some time allocated to these things, no? But if we go back to the rule that ritual can be performed in a different way, no, you shouldn't have that step-by-step sequence, if you like, no, that there has to be this way, otherwise people start saying, oh my God, this is too serious. No, I'm not gonna be part of it, no? So as a system, there are different parts interacting, no? And when I looked at the literature on ritual, I realized that you form a community, you can form a community, but you should be allowed to leave that community and come back. No? if you partner with people to go to the gym every morning and one of them doesn't show up, and then you start saying, oh my God, what happened? Oh, is he or she committed or no? Or maybe there is a health problem. Instead, if you say, well, they will come back when they are ready, the community continues. No, and maybe this person has a good reason to be, and a good reason for them to be away for a while. No, to be away for a while. So yes, and also helps this person imagine that went on a different sort of rituals and came back with better ideas. So, and in the university, luckily, we still have a bit of sabbatical time, so people go away, wherever. We don't care where they go, and then when they come back, they might come back with very interesting knowledge. No, so yeah, I know in organizations it's very difficult to leave or tell people now you go for a few months and come back when you are ready. But I'm sure there are ways of working that out. No, maybe changing the role that you have. No, moving to another role, or maybe even the process of soul searching. No, that people need at very high levels. That's not allowed, but maybe that could be a source of, again, creativity. That could be a source of creativity. I don't know if I answered the question.
No, I think you have. And actually, a few things that I really resonate with. One is that the ritual isn't the goal, but the outcome or the meaning or the what we're trying to get out of it is the goal. So if the format changes, if we don't exactly stick to these three things, shouldn't matter as much, right?
Yeah.
It's a means to an end. We need to be clear on the meaning. And actually, that's one of our findings, was that one of the key enablers of us maintaining rituals is understanding the meaning of why we take part in them, not the ritual itself. So on that, I really resonate. And also to maintain flexibility. Otherwise, you didn't say it, but I'll say it, it ends up being cultish.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's not what we're trying to establish. We're just trying to establish a good practice. And if that practice doesn't feel right today, that's what they tell you when you go to yoga, for example. It's like your body today doesn't show up the way it had last time or will next time. You might be a little stronger today or a little more flexible or less, and that's okay. But I really, I'd never thought about membership in a ritual and how to make that optional. So I think that's something for me to reflect on, which is really interesting. I think maybe also, and we had a question from the audience that kind of resonates with the question that I had. I'm going to go back and find it. But I think something that also is important, whether it's in systems or particularly in how we bring rituals into systems, is our collective values, or what are the principles that we all share, those not being as negotiable as others. What do you think the role of that? Again, different people call it different things. They call it values, they call it purpose, they'll call it, but let's talk about first principles, things that don't really change all that much. How do you see them show up in systems, in rituals, in the work that you do?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the idea of systems boundary, and I was very fortunate to learn from two people who have done lots of work in this area, Gerald Mitchell and Werner Ulrich. So they link the systems idea, what we think is a system, with the idea of boundary. Well, and they follow Wes Churchman before. So in the book, I was trying to link that idea of boundary with rituals. And what I say is that the rituals establish membership, but they also establish the boundaries of what we're going to be concerned with and the people that we consider important. And the work of Gerald Mitchell in that regard says that that's half of the story, because when we say this is our ritual or this is our community, we are also saying these other people and these other issues are not part of it. And we have to make it like that because resources are limited, or maybe these are the values we want to live by. So the other people might be in the periphery. So we are aware of them. We are aware of the other issues, but we have to proceed in this way. So if you go to a yoga club and you say this person is not attending, well, you are aware of them, but there are other people who may be the families of these individuals who you unconsciously are aware of, but you cannot do much about it. No, and my son plays football now in a football club, and I meet the parents every Sunday, and we talk about it. And we are part of the ritual. We are not the main players, right? The children are. And then when the parents start missing or something, then we ask what happens, no? In the way that I just described, not to punish anyone. So the boundaries are important so that we know who are we operating with or who we are benefiting with. There's a very number of questions in a methodology like critical systems heuristics about the boundaries of a system. So when you are in rituals, you could ask questions about those who are marginalized or those aspects, no? And the nice thing about the ritual is that you consider possibilities, no? You're not going to make decisions there. And that's also what prompted me to look at rituals, no? Because Gerald would say the boundaries are enacted in rituals. What I'm also saying is that the rituals can give you the chance to see other boundaries and maybe enrich the reflection that we were talking about. So yeah, it's a very interesting, no? The boundaries and values. And so we don't make those explicit. No? We don't make those, we think that we are benefiting everyone with a decision, and we think that we have the customer in mind, but then the other people are sitting there, no? And in my PhD, I found that when a university was doing a planning exercise, they said they were going to benefit the less advantaged students. But when it came to the budget, that was the ritual. The budget was the ritual of saying, this is who we are going to spend money on. And the less advantaged communities at the time, they had to be told, sorry, the focus is here, no?
Yeah.
But at least they were told, no? Sometimes we just ignore, you know? So yeah, in the ritual, as a benefit, you get that community, but it should be important to not to exclude the others, at least not in their thinking, no? In the thinking and in the practice, if you like.
Okay, thank you for that. Another question that I had for you, and this is maybe stepping out of rituals for just a second, but because we're also here to talk about systems, and I think rituals are a great way to enable certain outcomes in a system. But when we spoke, and you just shared with our audience as well, all of the work that you've done around creativity, something that also piqued my interest was around how you shared that organizations can, quote unquote, institutionalize creativity, as in they can build systems or structures that enable creativity. Can you tell us a bit more about how they can do that?
Yeah, there is a big temptation to institutionalize creativity by naming a creativity expert, naming someone like we did in the 90s with the total quality circles, no, through engineering. Now we might be naming an AI champion, and that stifles creativity in this case, because that lets other people off the hook, right? So I think the boundaries of creativity should be kept loose. No, there should be some kind of agreement in how far they can go. No, but everyone should be able to at least think of creativity, at least make an effort. No, if you start saying, and I've seen, I teach my students case studies from organizations where they say, well, send me your ideas, no, and I will collect them, or I will put them in an electronic format. That needs to be complemented with a more permissive culture where people can talk to each other. It's not only about sending ideas and championing the best ideas, no. There has to be this sort of informal corridor talks, if you like, no, informal initiatives, and the reward, no, because if you are not creative, then you can be punished, no, or how many ideas you generate, right? there should be a good balance. No, there should be a good balance of how we promote this, but with the spirit that we are all here to learn. No? We are all here to learn. Once you start saying we don't accept failure, then people stop being creative because they say, well, I need to try something that is going to show some good results. I don't really care of the long-term effects, and then I'll be let off the hook. No, so yeah, creativity is also a way of expressing yourself, no, recovering your humanity, and valuing every type of creativity. No, creativity that says, oh, I have a different way of proceeding with this customer, or the creativity of a whole new product or a whole new innovation. That could operate at different levels, and then if you want to go down the route of creativity, you should allow for diversity.
I really resonate with that. One of our values as a company is actually creativity. And when people join, especially because we're also a very visual company, as you've seen, they're a bit triggered by it. They're like, but I'm not a visual person. I'm like, but that's not what creativity means. Creativity is about the act of creating. You can create anything. You can create a process. You can fix the way we send this email. There's nothing that says, I don't know why we've all associated creativity with visual arts, but there's nothing that says that it needs to be connected. And I think some of the rituals that we have as a company, if I can share, I really resonated when you said it's everyone's job. And we can say that about so many things. Every time there's a chief something officer that is born, they're temporary, and it's not going to work, and that the end game is that everybody should be worried about this. So whether it was the diversity, whether now it's AI, like the hope is always that these conversations become everybody's problem, but limit them to one person. As you say, you give permission to say, oh, don't worry about it, someone else will worry about this. And one ritual that we have as a company that I just want to mention, if you take AI as an example, we've applied it to this, and we have one planned actually at the end of the year. We do something about 3 or 4 times a year that's called a Grow Day. And it's where we pick a theme that we think we should be exploring as an organization. And everybody gets the day off client work, off any of their tasks. And all we do is learn and share with each other what we learn. And then from there, we come up with initiatives on so if we were to take AI as an example, we had a mini Grow Day on that topic. We identified things that as a company we should be doing, but every single person in the company has something that they're owning in that space. This isn't my job or some senior leader's job. It's everyone's collectively. So I resonate with that. I can also see how doing that at scale, it's easy to say, oh, I did it. I have all of 12, people on my team. I can see how it can be hard to do this at scale. Do you have a perspective on how you scale into big, systems with more nodes inside of them, if you were to put it that way?
Maybe it goes back to something we spoke before this seminar. It's about the importance of conversation with other people. So maybe simple rules like if you have an idea, share it with someone, one person, or you can post it on an email or website. But then you have to do the follow-up of what happens, only collecting ideas and not telling people we selected these ideas because of this. It's disheartening, The first time it will work, everyone will be motivated. The second time it will say, why? I'm not sure what happened with my idea. It's my idea. I own it. I share it. At least I want some feedback. This is what we are trying to do at universities as well, that people get feedback about their own work, not necessarily the cohort, or the average. So yeah, that would be, there could be simple mechanisms to talk to each other, but also the organization could learn a lot from the environment where they are, from the community, from people who are working in a branch in a different country, or people who live there, but they heard of the company and they haven't had the chance to have a saying, I'm working on this small project with a housing estate, a small community here in the UK, and it's amazing that it was divided into the industrial park and the living part. And when I went to talk to someone about someone from the industrial park, a big company, sharing with them that the community had problems, they said, "Oh my God, really? I haven't heard anything." And they were, there were miles, a couple of miles in between them. So it's important when you think of systems, say that you have certain boundaries, but you can extend them and you can talk to people, and maybe there is something else to learn. Or maybe the company in this case was producing certain effects that are not in the reports of corporate social responsibility or are not illegal, but then the community resented. In this case, a company moved from their location to leave a space for a big supermarket. And believe it or not, the community resented it because there was a pub, there was a public house next to it. So apparently what they said is, okay, big piece of land is for a supermarket with the good boundary of saying the values of, serving the community. But really what happened was that they took out the pub and it's still in the memory of some long-term residents that they shouldn't have done it. So you need to talk to people. You need to talk to people, find out. But it's difficult because some people will not complain directly. They will forget about it. But keeping in tune is important.
That's very beautiful. Thank you for that. One more thing that you talk about that I wanted to make sure we discussed here today is, we talked about putting humans back into the system and understanding how we can maintain their place, we can continue to be in conversation and dialogue. Another big theme that you talk about is the notion of time. And you kind of mentioned it earlier today around slowing down in a world that's always in a hurry. Can you speak to us about how time operates as a variable in system?
Yeah, well, if we go back to Swansea, maybe he will say that life and death are equally valuable, because in the notion of the whole universe, things move continuously. So sometimes we are worried about time, that we are not going to have enough time to do things in life, or the company has to do this in the next year, otherwise it will be taken by others, no? But having a more systemic view allows us to say that maybe there is a bigger system in place that has some doings that we don't understand, that we probably, if we go down the route of complexity theory, we might be able to model, but at the end, we are not going to be able to control, no? So, we only have time for maybe practical purposes, but not necessarily for long-term ideas or notions, no? We love to think about that, no? So strategy is short-term, medium-term, long-term. I teach my students to have, companies need to have a vision of 5-10 years. That's important, but as I said, shouldn't be taken that seriously, that if we are not there in 5 years, my God, we fail, no? So maybe looking at boundaries, looking at others, no, trying to talk to each other, allows us to change our idea of time. I'm part of a group of walkers, senior people than me, and when you talk to them, this is not about, I need to finish the walk by 12 because no. Do we want to stay for another coffee? Fine, Or let's not walk. Sometimes, it's too cold. So for me, that's a soothing mechanism as well. It's a ritual. But it has allowed me to learn that the time that I have, the idea of time that I have in my job with my family is different from that other time. So you try your best, but time will continue, no? Time will come and we will all leave this world at some point. So it's not easy, no, it's not easy because we are the time and the being, like Heidegger said, no, they're intricate, very much related, but we try to separate that and maybe challenge the idea of time. Maybe we could live in a more relaxed way.
Yeah,
maybe.
that's really interesting to me. Like we come from polychronic cultures. Our perception of time is different to some other cultures. So it's really interesting to think about it. I have one of my mentors. He's also called, but he's Jose because he's Portuguese. And so he talks about time all the time. And in management, in like decision making, sometimes we ignore time altogether. We favor the things. I always say, like, we favor what we can put on a slide, and time is not easy to model that way. But I really love that. And as you say, part of knowing that you will not matter in the grand schema of things is also very soothing in some ways. We have a few questions from the audience
Sure.
that I'd love for us to take. They also match up beautifully to some of the closing questions. So I'll give voice to the audience instead of myself. Kenta asks about, with increasing digitalization, we spoke about AI. How can we maintain the human practices and the human at the center of our organizations? What is maybe a tangible thing? You spoke about conversations earlier. What is another tangible thing that we can do as leaders to keep the human at the center of our practices?
Let me go back to the welcoming attitude now. We are welcoming new technologies. We are welcoming also new people, in organizations day by day. In the UK, there is a situation with immigration. In my view, we should keep welcoming people, like they did with me many years ago. So yeah, I guess that's trying to be human, but also recognizing that we are not the masters anymore. AI, I don't know much about the future of AI. I just use some of the tools, but yeah, there are things that that AI might do for us, but there are others which probably a conscious AI will say, I'm not interested in doing it. So going back to certain things that make us very human and not that sort of competitive, those sort of time-bound people, there are the things that we like, the silence, for example, as Byung-Chul Han says in his discussion of ritual. He says, let's go back to a community in silence. So you sit in the main square of your hometown and in silence. And that was a ritual, leave the mobile phones at some point, sit in silence, see what happens. That's something like, that was human. And then what Hans says is that it's important to keep the form, or like a tea ceremony, you keep the form of things. You could have ordered your tea online or whatever. In the Japanese culture, there is a certain order, there's a certain respect, and you might think that that's only human, but they also like to privilege the form. So humans and form, there are many things we could continue doing. We could teach an AI to do it, but it's not going to be the same, right? An AI serving tea or bowing.
No. I always think about chess, and I'm like, we invented a computer that could beat Kasparov decades ago. We still don't enjoy watching that. So
yeah, it's something, something that my children, they know now about AI, and I have to keep checking that they don't do their assignments in their iPads with AI, But the other night, very surprisingly, they just started to play some table games. And so they abandoned their iPads.
For sure.
And we try to be firm with these things, but no. So, yeah, we try our best.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, please.
So yeah, they ended up playing, and and I joined them for a while, and there was something that we did before, no? We did before, because before they went to school, they didn't have tablets, no, and the whole thing about iPads and learning. But now we try to recover some of those small things, no, that made us a family before. Lots of course, like any other family, lots of issues, but that for me is human, no, and that for me is also ritual. So there'll be some things that, yes, we don't need to ritualize or digitalize too much, but we could enjoy, no? So enjoying what we think we enjoy is important. It's important.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. There are a couple of questions as well on systems thinking that I want us to maybe close on before we do our rapid fires.
Sure.
You know, I'm just going to go back to it. One question is that you've worked with systems thinking for years, and across a lot of contexts and a lot of industries and a lot of concerns as well. There are two questions from the audience around maybe some things that you've learned that are true across the board. One is, what is a lesson about systems that is true across all the contexts in which you've learned or explored systems?
Wow. For me, let me go back to Wes Churchman. No, he said once, there are no experts in the systems approach. Even the systems approach is a good idea, but that doesn't mean that is the panacea for everything. So when I work in different areas or with projects, after a while, we realize that everyone is trying their best, but we all have a very partial picture of what goes on. And the experts try to solve problems, but the mistake we all make is to solve it on our own. No? So there are no experts really. There are opportunities for dialogue or for appreciating what the other people are trying to do or saying. No, so that would be one thing. No, for me it's very difficult because when I go into a research project, people start putting me in boxes. No, so you are the IT guy. No, oh, you are the sustainability guy. No. So who is managing? Who is leading this? I'm just trying to say, well, why don't we try to learn from each other? No, so that's difficult for funding. Also, problems. They need an expert. They need a discipline expert now in cybersecurity or AI or art. So yeah, it's a blessing, but it's also a curse. No, that you want to learn from each other, saying, I'm not an expert, neither are you guys. So let's try to talk. But at the same time, it's, oh my God. So sometimes you have to listen.
I resonate with that a lot. Having never been the expert in the room, because every industry I've been in, I was new to, I really resonate. And I always speak of a book called Range, which argues actually that it was written a few years ago, but obviously AI was on the horizon. But in a world where AI takes over a lot of the work based on pattern recognition, generalists will actually be somehow favored over the specialists. So I'm being a generalist myself. This is music to my ears. Another question that we have from the audience that I also think is worth taking the time to answer is, across all the different times where you've brought systems thinking to life, taught it, what is an aha moment that people have when they start to see the world in systems that really stays with you?
The aha moment. Well, that time when the Colombian entrepreneur asked, what is technology? That was like, oh my God. The Western world is very much technology based, no? So that was an opening eye, and I think that triggered my interest in the whole thing. When I teach systems, the aha moment comes when someone from the audience says, this is so different. We have a course, I teach in management, so we have a course in finance, we have a human resource course, we have technology as well. But this looks so different. What are you doing here? So for me, that's probably is one moment in the whole term that makes me feel that, okay, I have a purpose. There is a meaning. because they're taking away from their cocoons of this is how I'm going to get a job. No, I'm going to get a certification in finance, or nothing wrong with that, no, or marketing, but at some point, oh my God, this is more complex. No, this perspective doesn't sit well with that other perspective, and the solution we talk about at the beginning, the solution to problems is not evident. So, oh my God, we need to think. So that's a aha moment for me, and I cherish those moments. Yeah, I cherish those. Yeah.
And one last question: if you want someone to start cultivating their systems thinking muscle, is there a specific way that you would advise them to start?
I think a few years ago, I saw an exercise maybe online, and I adopted it. It was suggesting that with your favorite movie, you have a favorite movie, and instead of telling a story from beginning to end, tell it with different parts and close the cycle. So the prince that is gonna rescue the woman in distress, it could be modeled in a traditional way, no, that told in a traditional way, but then you have to start thinking of other characters and what were their aspirations and what were they wanted to achieve, no? And there is a climax in that moment where things get resolved, but maybe they didn't get resolved. So you could create a parallel story about this. But yeah, try to put your favorite movie in context and create these different relations between characters and goals, and so that and maybe that's what attracts your favorite movie, that you watch it again because you want to understand one part that wasn't that clear, and all of a sudden, oh my God, this is a storyline that I haven't seen. That's for me systems, no? That's for me, and it has to be something that you are familiar with, no, and not the traditional modeling exercises that you have to sift through data and start relationships of cause effect. Yeah, no, start by your movie, or start by your family history as well, no? Who was doing here. The community that I'm researching now is many years, but try to go back to it, and there was this myth about the community that it didn't turn out to be totally true or reliable. So, and what about you? You arrive here, but no one has seen you as a boundary. No one has seen you. What's happening? Have you talked to people or not? So yeah, try to create mess from something that you are interested in, and I'm sure it will give you that sense of, oh my God, there are no experts. Oh my God, this situation is very interesting. We could make a movie of it or a book about it, and go from there.
What a great exercise. Thank you for that. That's all the time we had today, Jose, but I do have my final rapid fire questions that I'd love to ask, if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. So first off, could you please complete the sentence? An effective system is ...
One that allows you to be in tune with everything around you.
Thank you. Your favorite systems thinking tool is?
The rich picture, yeah.
The rich picture.
From subsystems methodology, yes.
Beautiful.
Creating a mess. Create your mess. Or do you create a mess in your kitchen or with your favorite book or film?
Beautiful. Thank you. And what is the one leadership quality or skill or mindset that you think is most needed to nurture systems thinking?
To be humorous and to listen to people and try to be like Swansea. Well, Swansea was always, or Confucius in some of the memories of Swansea. Confucius, who was supposed to be this very serious guy, very sage, starts cracking jokes or being satirical, no, in a good way. So that's a good leader. You won't forget a leader that challenges you, but also appreciates you and gives you a pat in the back and said, well done, or you forgot this, or something like that. No, someone who is not as serious as you might have thought. It could be serious when they have to sit in a meeting, in a board, of course, but
Sure.
then you have the chance to have a drink with this person or a coffee or something and learn from it, and learning in a humorous way.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the lightness that shines through. And I know our audience did too. We have a couple of comments about that. This thing of not taking everything too seriously is a very strong thought to leave us with. Thank you again so much, José-Rodrigo, for being with us today. It was really priceless and I learned a lot.
Thank you. No, the pleasure is mine. I'm very grateful, and I have enjoyed the conversation, and I hope it helps somebody to think about systems.
I'm sure it will. It helped me already. So you got your first check box. Thank you also to our attendees for showing up with us today, for their beautiful questions. If you want to share the session, you can give them, whoever you want to share this with, the link to the event page, and we'll be later reposting it as well as a YouTube video and a podcast for those who prefer those formats. Our next session is on October 24th, so that's Friday, a week from now. And it's actually a really special session because we're bringing the parents that are in our team, myself being one of them, to talk about the systems we've built to balance parenthood and work. So I think if anyone is a parent or works with a parent, which means everybody, this one will be really valuable to learn how people can build systems to balance all of these different roles that we cherish in our lives. And with that, see you soon. Stay curious, and thank you. Hi there.
Hello.
Tyson, you want to give us feedback? How was it? Did you enjoy it?
Very much. Sorry, I was a bit maybe anxious. I don't know. No, I enjoyed it.